Um, this is actually an area where I personally don't see a lot of people talking about this. We hear a lot about AI, using AI to, for chatbots and for all these different things. But a key thing to understand about AI, it's only as good as the data that you feed it. And so a lot of information is stuck in subject matter experts' heads. And we're going to talk about why it's stuck there, but also how you can use AI to get it out efficiently. And not just get it out in a way that people can use it. So let's talk about the outcomes that you want. This is what you want to achieve. If you're trying to capture subject matter expert knowledge, you want to make sure that you're capturing the right content. You want to make sure that it's captured in a way that employees can find and follow it. And you want this process to be as painless for the SME as possible because these are usually very busy people. Now, why do I emphasize these three things? We talked with a group once. They were so concerned about their SMEs leaving and they knew they didn't have any of that knowledge captured. They hired a videographer to follow their people around just to video what they did all day. So they'd at least have it captured. The problem was they had all this video footage that was not in a format that anybody could find and follow. So they've recorded hours and hours of video. Nobody really went back and used it. So didn't meet the requirements. Others we've seen that they go in and they capture SME knowledge, but then when you look at what people actually have to do, they don't have the right content. They're missing things that people actually needed to do. And then any SME who's gone through this process knows that it can be very painful, very time consuming, when somebody comes in and says, document all your procedures. So these are the outcomes we want to hit these three boxes as we're going through. Anything you'd add there, Jay?
Well, I think you were kind of touching on it. What are the outcomes we want, right content that employees can find and follow. um, but also because you're kind of talking about like AI garbage in, garbage out. We want it so that AI can also follow it, right? If we just have a
Yeah.
bunch of stream of consciousness from all these people, AI has to generate something and it may generate. Anyway, I just want to kind of highlight that too. Like we want employees to be able to find and follow it, but AI also, we want to optimize for that as well if we do some AI stuff in the future.
Well, and a fourth thing I really should have put in here is that you want an easy way for the SME to review and approve it.
Yeah.
That what's coming out, that you want human eyes on that to say this is correct.
And maybe that's a better way of saying it. Yeah. We need to be able to confirm and validate this is accurate.
Yeah. Okay, well, what are the barriers to making this happen? Well, first is time, right? But the second is actually writer's block. It's the hands on the keyboard. Whether it's the SME doesn't type very fast, that's really even just a minor problem. They could use dictation software. It's hard when you know something really well to think about it in a way that somebody who doesn't know it very well needs to understand it. And so you'll see people, they sit down and they're supposed to document this stuff. And it's not that they're unintelligent. It just never quite gets done. And they're not quite sure how to approach it. They're not quite sure what to include, what to leave out, how to not make it too complicated. So these are huge barriers to getting this done. Well, how can AI help in this process? And I'm going to show you three levels here. So first is transcription, second is summarization, and finally separation and optimization. And I'll show you why you really want to get down to that third one, because the first two may not get you to where you want to be. Okay, so what I did for this example is I just went in. We use a thing called ChargeBeat for our subscription management, and I just stream of conscious talked about it, the process of creating a subscription. I have not edited this at all, so this is just the straight transcription in ChatGPT of what I said. Now, you're looking at this like, oh, that's a wall of words. This transcription is not going to be very useful. It's good raw material, but if we just stop at transcription, we're not going to get things that employees can find and follow. And this would be really hard for me to approve and say, yes, this is correct.
Mhm.
So we really moved beyond that. Now, on the left here, this is the same thing, left and right. This is summary. So when I took that transcription and I put it in ChatGPT, it automatically created this summary. And so it broke things out. Now, this is much better, obviously, than what I had did just the transcription. So what it's done here is it has kind of some background knowledge on what a subscription and customer record is, and then it has an outline of this process broken down into the high level steps here. So this would be an example of summary. And the default AI tools are very good at summary. Now let's look at optimization. So this is the same exact, I haven't, and none of these things have been edited at all. This is just the output that I got from the system. So we took this, I took the same thing, and in our system, what we do is we separate out actual and foundational knowledge. So the actual is, how do I do this? The foundational is, what is this? Why is this? What are the rules behind it? So running that through, I just took, we have two different processors. We have an actionable and a foundational one. I ran the same exact transcript through the actionable processor, and this is what it created. Now you can see this is much more concise because what we've done is we've separated out the actual and the foundational. Now this is going to be much easier for an SME to look over and approve, is this correct or not? Because all we have are the steps here. Then I did the same thing and ran it through our foundational processor. Didn't change the text at all. And this is giving me the background and the high level overview of this. So once again, this is much easier now for an SME to approve. Same input for all of this, but we've got something that very efficiently can get things out in a way that they can look at and say, oh, that is correct, or that isn't. Jay, anything you would comment on this idea of separating out the foundational and actionable as you're using AI to capture information?
We were, we were just on a call earlier today where we were showing how when you do this separation, this may not get exactly what you're talking about in this moment, but when you can separate that out, not only is it just a lot cleaner, but it's so much faster to create the stuff. Like if you're not having to worry about explaining what a subscription is, what ChargeBee is, why do we have subscription models and all that, you just jump right to it. Yeah, it's easier to write it out, and AI's got it there written. But if you want to add screenshots, if you want to add a little, like, it's so much faster to just drop it in there. So yeah,
Yeah.
go back to the, yeah. So this one, just okay, 7 screenshots, boom, 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 boom. You can so quickly elaborate on this a little, just adding a little bit of visuals, versus if you go back to the one with just the chat GPT. Not only is that one, I'll go back a
Oh,
couple
this one
more.
over here, yeah.
Yeah. It's just kind of harder to, drop in some screenshots here, or I don't know, like there's just there's a lot in there. Now it's, yeah, anyway, so it's just faster to optimize it and kind of make it better if you just jump right to the actionable pieces.
Well, and the other thing here, when you separate these out, because all this content has to be maintained somehow. So when you separate this out, the foundational knowledge is not going to change that often. So this here about what a subscription is and what a customer is, those things aren't going to change that frequently. But the process might change. They might change the UI or the flow or add some other things to it. When we separate these two things out, we now make it much easier to keep things up to date. All right. Now let's talk about the process of, we've talked about kind of that process of getting it out in a format that somebody can follow on their own and that the SME can review. Now let's talk about the process of actually getting it out of their head. The first thing is you got to structure the questions correctly. I've watched interviews, so we'll do things where Jonathan will do things where he's interviewing clients to get this knowledge out of their heads, but he has a very structured way that he's going to go through and ask them about specific what we call inputs. Inputs are situations. So like somebody's asking you to do this, or somebody has this problem, how would you solve it? Those are inputs. I've seen other interviews where they just start kind of talking in general. It's like, well, tell me about collections. And what do you do for collections? And what are the different systems you use? And so when you got to collect this, what do you do there? It's not very structured. And then the AI has a trouble pulling out what's really necessary there. Where if you structure this thing, you've identified beforehand, these are the situations that we need. This is the background knowledge that we need. You can sit down there and say, tell me what customers are in your CRM system. What do they mean? They talk about that. Now tell me if I need to create a new customer, how would I do that? And if I need to transfer a customer to someone else, how would I do that? And now somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, the customer, changed their business entity. I need to update that. How would you do that?" You've identified these inputs that make it much easier for the SME to just respond to questions and get things out of their head in a way that the AI is going to be able to process it efficiently.
One
Um,
thing I'll add to the question piece too is I'm constantly rephrasing or summarizing what they're telling me, which is a technique that I learned when I was getting my master's in counseling, is the
yeah.
reflecting back. But it's super helpful because when someone hears it back, then they might catch that they missed something. So don't just say, okay, tell me about this. Oh, okay, nice, nice. Now, how about this? It's like, okay, so, and I just did this recently for a credit union where they're saying if a credit union member passed away. So as we were going through it, anytime I heard something new, I'd say, okay, tell me more about that. Got it. So when someone comes in and says this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And then based on these things, for this one, you go then, and then this one, you go that. Like I'm rephrasing it. And they're like, oh, yeah, yeah. But actually, there's one more thing you'd want to do. So yeah, saying it back to them is going to really help clarify what that input is and what the different variables might be and the steps that they're going to do for that.
And when you're doing that, AI is going to do a really good job of kind of bringing that all together,
Yeah.
right? So you don't have to worry about saying, okay, now start over and tell me the whole process again.
Yeah.
AI is actually really good at pulling out those patterns. So you keep kind of just asking, okay, now is what I understood? Is that right? And they're going to fill in more detail. And as you do that, you're going to get to more of a complete picture there.
Yeah.
Now, after you've captured that, now they need to approve the content. And that's where that separation is. So it makes it so much easier for them. And, I've seen some of the comments when people go through and they explain this and they felt like they kind of rambled a little bit. And then they see the output. They're like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
but what's amazing about it is they can look at it and say, "Oh, I left out this step," or "Nope, this is good. We're good to go." It's just so much easier for them to give that stamp of approval.
hmm.
Anything you'd add there, Jay?
No, no. Yeah, making it clear is a magical moment.
And then the final thing is really optimizing it for performance. So I don't think of documentation as a documentation process. It is preparing someone for a performance. The performance we're preparing for is that moment when an employee needs to find and follow it. So if that bulleted list is enough for that performance, you're done. But if that bulleted list, if it's super complex, I remember that process you were talking about, Jay, it may make sense to convert that into a decision tree because we need to improve that performance. But having this first step makes such a huge difference in being able to get that clarity there.
Yeah, and one thing that Greg always brings up when we're doing these and working on this project, it's like it would be amazing if we could get to 100%. After the conversation, boom, it's magically just it knows everything, it's done. But I just don't think that's realistic. Like using AI, we have to have the expectation that if we had a conversation about something and we turned it into an article, it's going to be about 75, 80% of the way there.
Yeah.
And but that's still huge because it saves
Yeah.
us tons of time. It could take an hour to kind of build something out if we're just typing it all out. But using this stuff, like in 5 minutes, you have this. In a couple more minutes, you just make some tweaks, but then you're done. That's still huge. That's still a huge way up the road.
Yeah. And when I find that I use this, sometimes I'm not clear on what my process is.
Yeah.
And so I'll bring it on, I'll turn on the recording and just talk through this. And I've found that AI is really good at helping me clarify to even to see the process that I can't see in there as I
Hmm.
talk through it. So that can be a great tool there. I will say, when you get to this optimized for performance stage, there's some AI systems that will give you these summaries, but ultimately they're just presenting to the employee the PDF or the Word file that it came from. And when you can present a decision tree or a checklist instead of that, that's something, a recipe that they can follow. I think it was you, Jay, that we were talking with, one client. They looked at several systems. They're like, these AI systems, they're just feeding me back the PDFs we gave them. Like they're
Yeah.
summarizing it, but it's still the same thing. where a decision tree really helps an employee navigate a complex procedure confidently and independently and efficiently.
Yeah. And it's approved. That's a, like,
Yep.
just to reiterate that thing. If an AI is generating stuff based on PDF stuff and it's giving it to an employee who doesn't know any better and it generated something that was not accurate or whatever, that's dangerous. But
Yeah.
we're not necessarily in this case using AI to generate output of like what we're going to use. We're helping it think through a process so that we can approve a process and say, this is how we do it. And it's a little bit of a different use case, but it's
Yeah.
really,
So we know that we trust what's going out. We're using
yes.
it to accelerate the point that we can get to the point that we trust what's going out.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we, do this with clients? These are ways you can think about this. There's really primarily two ways to do this. One is you set up all the questions that they need to respond to or those inputs and title them all as articles. And then they can bring it up in ScreenSteps and they can just go through, and hit record and answer those questions. They hit record and then they hit the AI summarizes it and they're done and they move on to the next one. That involves a bit more work for the SMEs because obviously they have to bring up the article and they have to talk through it. The other way that we've done this, and this is really kind of you know, all they have to do is commit to an hour Zoom meeting once a week. They'll get on and Jonathan will take them through that interview process. They're not typing anything on that. They're just kind of going through that. We'll take that recording, run it through some of the internal AI tools that we have, and return to them those optimized articles, the foundational, the actionable, split out, courses created, all of those things from that. Jay, do you want to kind of dive in a little bit more on the difference between these two approaches?
Yeah. So, for the setting up the questions and SMEs respond, it's, and Greg said this, but that's the article title. The input is the article title. And you say, you just go in there, hit record, and it'll do it. I will say not everyone loves the experience of talking to their computer. And the only reason is because they're like, oh, I'm going to say it wrong or I'm going to say it poorly. And it's funny when people hit record, they immediately turn on like this different voice. It's like, to go to this, you will click on here. It's like, just talk to it like you're having a conversation. So
Well,
getting
and
over
the thing
that,
they need to know is nobody's going to hear your recording.
no
The
one's hearing your
computer's the only
recording.
person
Yeah.
who's going to hear you. It's not,
Yeah.
these will not be played later on.
Yes. We've been traumatized by that idea that someone's recording us. So once you get over that hurdle, though, I've had people love this approach. Be like, just give me the articles and let me just cram through it. And we've had people get through hundreds of questions by just recording themselves and having the AI optimize it. And it's awesome. So get over that hurdle and you can do it. For the Zoom meetings, I've done it a couple different ways. And this is Zoom meetings were really good when we kind of needed a committee of people to give their inputs because these processes were still kind of fuzzy. So I had about 30 questions. I went through it and they just said, yeah, you're going to do this, 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 and this. Someone else might chime in. Oh, what about this? Oh, yeah, I got to do that. So we had more of a committee group session and it was awesome. We got through like 30 of these inputs. And then we just, use the AI. I just dropped in the entire transcript into our AI stuff and went through it. And like in 30 minutes, we had all those articles done. So it was fantastic. The other one was when there was a little bit more of a complex process. This was one with the deceased member at a credit union. So this one, again, it was like, this one was very fuzzy. Greg mentioned the idea of sometimes you're not sure what the process is. You haven't actually formulated one. And so that was about 40 minutes of us formulating what the process might be by doing that interview. And again, it was by committee. So we had several people on the call to help chime in. But we went through that process of like really figuring out what the procedure should be in this situation. We got a lot of foundational stuff. So we built out an article for that. But we had the actionable one as well. And in an hour, which probably would have taken us 3 or 4 otherwise, we got to the solution and then used the AI to build out that workflow article, the decision tree article. And like, yeah, after this whole meeting, in 10 minutes, I gave her the workflow and just like, oh, that's awesome. That's it. Like,
Yep.
done. That was all. So both work very, very well. If you know the process very, very clearly, the first one's going to be your fastest, just boom, boom. If you still need to kind of have a committee to help out, the second option is going to be a really good way to go about it.
Or I'd say the other way the second one option makes sense is if your team is struggling to make the time to make it happen.
Perfect. Yeah. Great
Yeah,
point.
because so we found that sometimes if the SMEs have very good intentions, but there's a lot of their time, and so it keeps getting kind of pushed off. where if you just have this on their calendar, they're going to show up to a Zoom meeting and they're going to talk, it will all get done. So, you just do however many weeks you need, and you can do it more often than once a week, but it's going to get done. Where before we've talked to people where it's been going on for years that they've had this initiative to quote unquote document the procedures. And it's really magical when this happens. You have the whole team, they have clarity about the processes. Like Jay said, they've decided finally on some of these because sometimes they haven't never really decided what their procedure is. Um, so you've got transparency, you've got consistency. It's really life changing. And the AI is, you think about like setting up the questions and just having people respond. You don't need to have them be like documentation experts. This really changes the equation. You can have people, they just need to know the answers, the ones that do it all the time. They don't have to be documentation experts because the AI is going to kind of account for that and fix that. uh, Works with people that maybe, English isn't their first language. It's still gonna, it's gonna get it all out in the right way. It's really a powerful tool to get this knowledge out of people's heads.
Yeah, and I'll just mention, like, I've sat on thousands of hours of calls with folks as we've built content, and um, there is an element too to just be said of like it takes a while sometimes to just type out your thoughts in even just a simple bulleted list. And I've sometimes seen it take 45 minutes to just come up with a very simple procedure, not even elaborate with screenshots or decision trees, just like, what do we do? That's 45 minutes where they know it because everyone's asking them on Teams all day long, how do I do this? And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, here's how I do it. Like I'm just explaining it, not on Teams. I guess they knock on the door, right? And they can say it. So I've seen it go from 45 minutes of taking the type it out to literally 3 minutes where we recorded them explaining it and then the AI got it. So I mean, it's a huge time saver as well to get all this stuff in there.
All right. Well, hopefully this has been helpful. Let us know any questions that you have about this process, or maybe you've tried this, things that you've run into, but happy to stay around and answer questions. If you want to get more information about this, feel free to reach out, greg@screensteps.com. Happy to talk to you about how we can help your team get over that hump really of getting that documentation out, getting it into a system where people can find and follow it. But any questions that people have so far?
Greg, I have a question. So I've been talking to a few people recently who are kind of the knowledge champions on their team, and they're struggling with the level before this. And so that is, how do I get my SMEs bought in on the idea of knowledge sharing and going through this process? And I think it's kind of two levels. One is it's natural for an expert to feel like their expertise is their value. And so by holding on to that, they have a lot of value on the team. And then on the other side of it is, well, it's just easier for me to just do it. Just come ask me, I'll do it. How does somebody broach that conversation?
I think there's a couple things there. So first, a lot of times when you go in and you say to someone, hey, we need you to document everything you do, they do get worried about, okay, am I not going to have value for the organization? Um, we really try to help them see that this is going to amplify. If they're really a subject matter expert, then this is going to amplify their efforts because most of the time their time is not being used in the best way possible. They're having to answer a lot of questions and fix a lot of mistakes. And they really become a bottleneck. We've seen organizations where they had people that just refused because they were holding on to that power. And the organizations eventually got rid of them because they were such a liability to the organization. Where when they can do this and they continue to do this, they are now empowering the whole team to be more efficient and they become an asset to the team instead of a liability there. Anything you'd add, Jay?
No, and I guess that's the first one. That was the first question John asked was if someone's kind of resistant because
Yeah.
they're kind of nervous. The second question you had, John, was how do you get people just bought into the idea?
Yeah, yeah, and Greg covered that. But also, I guess
Oh,
the
okay.
other side of it is, um, it, it's just quicker for me if somebody comes and
Oh,
asks
that's what it
me,
was. Yeah, that's what it was.
yeah,
Well, or they'll, what you'll hear there is it's just quicker for me to do it. And when you dig a little deeper, you'll usually hear, well, it's too complex to document. Like this is just too complex for me to get down. And have we run into one of those situations, Jay, where that really proved to be true? That it really was just too complex to document?
No,
No. It's just they haven't
they haven't
ever
identified the rules.
exactly. And AI is good at identifying those rules. That's what's so powerful here is you can talk through it and the AI can help you identify what those rules are.
And sometimes it does actually require a judgment call, right? If you need a manager to kind of look at these and assess the situation and make a judgment call, got it. But there are certainly things you can do beforehand to either reduce the number of escalations going there in the first place or to help that manager gather the information they need to
To
make
make
that
that
judgment
judgment
call.
call. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And you can make it clear when they need to go to the manager for a judgment call and when they don't.
Yeah.
So you really reduce those quite a bit.
Yeah.
And a great point here from Jenna. She said, being too complex seems to go hand in hand with writer's block.
Yes.
Just so to like to Jenna's point to what Greg's saying too. So going back to the example, because it's a fresh example of this that we were working with for member services kind of thing. It was something that was being put off for weeks and weeks and weeks, and actually for years. They were putting it off for weeks and weeks of documenting because they weren't sure how to do it. But they're putting it off for years because like it's so much. We had the conversation, we had that meeting. In 40 minutes, we got it. Like we were able to figure it out, and we were able to put structure to some very abstract thoughts and ideas that were part of that process. And when we put the structure to it, it's like, oh, you really can literally just like go through these questions and determine what needs to happen. But it was just it was just all in there because they've been working there for 30 years or whatever. And so anyway, yeah.
We got a couple more questions coming in. I'm going to rattle these off in the order that they came in. So the first is this service assistance with getting the information extracted through SMEs part of the cost of the ScreenSteps fees, or is it a service that would be on top? So Jonathan, I think that's what you're doing with your coaching.
Coaching, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Coaching takes many forms. That's one of them.
Yeah, but that's an additional cost that we do, a service we
Yeah.
provide. And if you need help with that, you can let us know. We can give you a quote on what that would be there.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then the next one is, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Do you know a way of creating visual documentation faster through AI? Feed screen recording to create ScreenSteps articles. How do you do that?
So right now there's a bit of a manual process in there for what we do. So we'll use the AI. Jonathan's done this where he'll record trainings and we'll use the AI to pull that out and then we can grab the screenshots from the recording to put them in the right place. And so it's speeding it up. We're continuing adding AI to more and more of that process. So we kind of take it in like, okay, how can we make this faster? It's like all about progress. Now, how can we make this part faster, this part faster? We don't have a place yet where it will automatically place the screenshots from the recording. But yeah, I guess stay tuned.
Yeah.
Ask again in a few months.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
go,
awesome.
yeah,
And
go
then
ahead.
Paul is asking, are you focusing on ChatGPT or using your AI tool in ScreenSteps?
So
I
the
guess throughout this
examples we
whole
choose.
process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're using really a combination of both. It's our own custom things that we've done to ChatGPT and the AI process that's built into ScreenSteps there. So we have some custom things that we built on top of that. But they're designed so they can use multiple AI engines, but right now OpenAI is the one that we use. I Paul, let me know if that answered your question um, uh, or not. But we're not just kind of putting things into ChatGPT there. There's processing we have going on.
Great.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, this is something that I've been in this industry for over 20 years. Um, and I want to admit that I was, when AI first started coming out, I would consider myself a skeptic as it came out. I still think that a lot of people are trying to use it in the wrong way. If I look at my personal experience, it's made customer support worse for most of the products that I use. It hasn't made it better, but I think that's because they're thinking about these things the wrong way. They're trying to take their junk drawer of knowledge and have AI figure it out. And the real opportunity here is to get this out in a way that people can find and follow it. And when people can find and follow it, then those chatbots and those AI tools will work much better. It's our job to keep it up to date and to feed it the right information. So it's an exciting time to be involved here. And like I said, if you have any questions, reach out to us. Anything else you'd add, Jay, before we wrap up?
I just saw one more question come in
What?
from Paul.
Um, so let me see. But Paul, will you be adding AI to the back end administrative functions for such things as reporting or creating initial article requests? We're looking in, all areas where we can add AI. If you have particulars there, Paul, though, it'd be great to set up a time with you and just understand, specifically what you mean there for the use case. If you mean like querying for report data or kind of processing the article requests. One thing that we are looking at as well is when you create articles is using AI to kind of let you know, hey, does this conflict with something? Does this already exist? Do you need to, update something else? Those sort of things in there. But yeah, we're looking at all aspects of that.
Yeah.
But happy to set up a time with you, Paul, to talk through your specific use case.
Yeah. So then the last thing that I'll just add here is kind of what Greg mentioned too. Like we make as much progress as we can, and then we figure out how can we can make more. But it's kind of like this stepping, like step by step, how can we get it better? And so when we're building out content using AI, we don't want to let perfection get in the way of progress. Something is better than nothing. And if it's good enough, whereas if it's a bullet, if all you have time to do for this week is sit down there and rattle off information for 10 procedures, it's like, yeah, they don't have decision trees quite yet, or they don't have the screenshots in there quite yet. But is this bulleted list sufficient? Like if somebody who had the foundational knowledge could pull this up and use it, would that resolve their question or help them in that moment? And if it could, it's good enough. Move
Yeah.
with it. That's great. And if you find that 10 people go through it and they're like, hey, I'm getting lost. Okay, next step, let's add some screenshots. Or next step, let's make a decision tree. But getting it out of your head into a format that you can easily transfer it, that's good. And so don't let this ideal perfection state get in the way of, hey, we just rattled off 50 articles that are good enough. And now we're, you know, getting back some time in our day. That's fantastic. Do it. Go forward with that. And so, yeah, just that idea of little, little progress and helping get that knowledge out of your head. It doesn't have to be a perfect state, just a good enough state.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. We will see you possibly next week.